Believe it or not, all the notes from that piece were taken from the scale of C major. Now, scales aren't only useful for making up single-note melodies. They're also vital to the construction of chords, the building blocks on which most rock and pop is based. Let's start with this chord, the major triad. This uses the first, C, the third, E, and the fifth, G, notes of the major scale, in this case, C major. Now, the third is important because it tells you whether the chord is major or minor. If the chord is minor, the third has to be flattened by a semitone or half step, and this chord usually has a sadder sound to it. You could, of course, be mysterious and leave the third out completely, but it does sound a bit empty on its own. Once you're confident in finding this triad on the keyboard, you could try playing other major triads starting on different notes. Now, the C major triad happens to be made up entirely of white notes. If you play a triad on D playing white notes, you can hear, in fact, that this is a minor chord. If you want to play D major, you have to conform to the correct major scale step pattern, i.e. tone, tone, semitone, tone. Therefore, the third in D major has to be a black note. That's F sharp.
Once you've learnt the basic structure of major and minor triads, you can combine them together in chord sequences to make up songs. Now, in the last series of Rock School, we did look at one chord sequence, the 1-4-5, so called because the chords are rooted on the first, fourth, and fifth degree of the major scale, and they use the notes of the scale. So, in the key of C, you'd have the chords of C major, F major, and G major. Sound familiar? Now, other commonly used triads are those that start on the second, third, and sixth degree of the major scale. Again, in the key of C, you would have the chords of D minor, E minor, and A minor. You'll find that all these 6 chords sound good in lots of different combinations. Just listen to the next piece. When you're playing chord sequences on the keyboard, you'll soon find that if you're just using root triads, that's starting on the first note of the scale, not only will it be madly leaping around the keyboard, but your chord progressions won't sound very smooth. For example, rather than playing G minor to C like this, you might find this easier and neater. Or even, these changes in the note order of each chord are called inversions and are well worth experimenting with. In the next piece, we're going to be playing a couple of 2-chord sequences. Notice how I can build the excitement of the piece, not just by getting louder, but by stepping through the various inversions.
You may have noticed my left hand creeping in there. Well, if you've only been playing synths a short while, you're probably not used to two-handed keyboard playing. Well, a good way in is through sustained chords, because both hands usually play the same rhythm and you've got plenty of time to work out the next chord. In the next piece, I'm going to be playing 3 different sustained chords. Notice how in each chord I'm only playing the 1st and the 5th of the chord in my left hand, as the 3rd usually sounds too thick, low on a keyboard.
Played on the piano in this fashion, sustained chords will contrast nicely against a busy rhythm, solo guitar, or funky bass. Now, we'll be looking at rhythm keyboards in a later session of Rock School, as well as developing our single lines away from melodies to full-blown soloing.
Now, we've been talking about single-line melodies and relating these to the chordal backing. But the most obvious single-line melodic instrument is often the most neglected when it comes to practice and training. We felt we couldn't neglect it any longer. It is, of course, the human voice.
Thank you, Graham Bonnet. More from him later. Singing depends on how you use your lungs, throat, nose and mouth, but it's also about the expression and emotion that you can convey in a performance.
Man thinks about a little bit of baby girl and a baby boy. Man make them happy because man make them toys. But after man make everything, everything you can, man makes money, the root of all evil, to buy from every good woman and every man. This is the man's world. But it wouldn't be nothing.